My name's Harry Barnett. I'm a forestry consultant and I work with another colleague, Rod Pass. We're both self-employed, and I also carry out work for the Deer Initiative as well. My job is very much part of the planning of the work in woodlands. My job is to survey woodlands, to record what is there, the trees, all the plants, all the wildlife as well, and to look at the history of the woodlands as well. It's very important when you're managing a woodland to know what's happened in that woodland in the past. So it's very much knowing what has gone on in the past so you can decide what you're going to do in the future. What I do in my normal day, well, I don't have a normal day because I do a combination of things. I survey woodlands, I go and walk around woodlands and record things within the woodland, and then I have to go home and I put that all onto the computer and put all the plans together. So it's a combination of inside and outside. I've got to say where I really want to be is outside. You know, all my life I've loved working in woodlands, and I'm a very fortunate person to be able to spend a lot of my life outside within woodlands. I like seeing the wildlife, I like enjoying the woodlands. The total woodland experience is what it's all about for me. My job is to organise the planning of woodland work, and the planning requires a lot of work to actually record what exactly is there. You've got to know what is there before you can decide what markets the timber's going for. It's very important these days, and particularly in the woodland we're in at the moment, which is a site of special scientific interest, therefore its wildlife is extremely important, and when we're planning what we're going to do in the woodland, we've got to take all that into account. This woodland also has great historic importance. This was a deer park, we have earthworks running throughout the woodland, and all these things we need to record, and we know what there is there before we decide what we're going to do with it. So this is a process of building the information together, filling all this detail in, and there's a lot of legal requirements as well. Before you can fell any tree, you need to know exactly what is there. You have to decide what volume you're going to fell, and you have to discuss this with the Forest Commission. We need to put together a management plan for the Forest Commission, and this brings in all the grants which are available for the landowner. So my job is to negotiate with the landowner to bring together the plans. We're also very concerned these days about the impact of deer on woodlands. Over the last 40 or 50 years, the deer numbers in this country have increased dramatically. There's probably more deer around in the countryside today than there has been prior to the medieval period. Just as we stopped here before we started filming, we saw 50 fallow deer actually move off just away from this place here. And those 50 fallow deer are really impacting heavily upon this woodland. They're eating all the regeneration of the trees and shrubs, and they're removing all the lower layer of the woodland, and this is vital for the woodland birds. Things like nightingale, things like white throats and blackcaps and willow warblers, and all those kind of birds are dependent upon that shrub layer, and the fallow deer are removing that completely. Our problem these days is to enable the deer and the woodlands to survive together. And unfortunately that means that we've got to manage the deer populations, we've got to control how many deer are upon here. It may mean that we're going to have to cull some of those deer to make sure that the deer are living in balance with the woodland itself. I've had a very extended career, but the reason that I'm involved in woodlands is because I'm very keen on nature conservation. And it's that angle that I've come at this job from. I worked as a volunteer when I was a young man, working on nature reserves and areas throughout the country. And so, you know, I've arrived at it from a conservation point of view. And I got involved with a chap named Oliver Rackham, and that's what brought me into forestry. That was the interest I had. I was very interested in ancient woodlands like this one, and managed to get jobs with various organisations which enabled me to progress in my career. I've always wanted to manage woodlands. That's what it's always been about. Interest in making sure that I manage the woodlands both for economic reasons but also for the wildlife as well. The best thing about this job is to be out in the woodlands, enjoying the wildlife, enjoying Everything about the woodland. The worst thing about it for me is sitting down in front of a computer and banging out all the paperwork. But that's a vital part of the job that has to be done. There's no way around it. And I like meeting people. I like dealing with the contractors, meeting the landowners, meeting everybody who's involved with managing a woodland. That's a great enjoyment as well. The skills you require for this job are numerous, and it is all about experience. It's building up that experience over a lifetime. And if you want to get a job like this, what you've got to do is to experience every part of woodland management, working as a contractor, so you know all about that side of the job. You know, physically doing the work itself it's very important to understand that. You need to know how the machines operate. You need to know how they get the material out. You need to know all about the markets for the material you're bringing out of a woodland. You need to experience everything to do with woodlands, all to do with the wildlife. You know, I love plants, and that's very much an interest of mine. And when I'm walking around the woodland, I'm looking for plants, and those plants tell me a great deal. They tell me all about what the soil is like, what trees are going to grow on that site. So it's building up a whole picture of the woodland, and that takes a long time to build up that knowledge and information. And it's observation. You've got to be looking all the time. You've got to be looking around you all the time, looking for signs of. For me, at the department, I do a lot of work on deer. And my job is to look at the impact of deer upon the woodlands, the damage they're causing. So when I'm walking around, I'm looking for the slots, the marks that deer make with their feet. I'm looking for paths that they use. I'm looking for the damage which they're doing to trees. They're eating trees. They're ripping the bark off with their antlers when they're marking their territories. So the important thing is to use your eyes. Use your eyes and listen when you're walking around the woodland, and you'll learn a great deal about those woodlands. Ancient woodlands has been my passion all my life, and the management of ancient woodlands. And it's frequently been very difficult to find markets for the produce from a lot of these ancient woodlands. And it is only in the last 10 years that the markets have really started to develop, and the biofuel market has been the main use of a lot of the material from these woodlands. And that's grown dramatically over the last 10 years. And for us, this is the best of times to manage ancient woodlands. You know, we've got a market for the produce that comes from them, and in managing the woodlands, we're encouraging all the wildlife again, all the plants, all the birds, all the mammals, all the insects associated with these woodlands. So biofuels has been a wonderful thing as far as I'm concerned.